Hey, coffee experts. Those of you running independent coffee shops, you're always looking for ways that you can drop your costs. And we here at the Coffee Experts Club really understand that. And so we've started something called Indie Coffee Coalition. And what it's designed to do is to drop your costs on two of the things that you're probably experiencing the highest sales volume in your store. And that is energy drink and frat mix. Those two line items, we've created our own products and are offering you those products at a reduced cost so that you can cut out the Red Bull of America. You can cut out the main lines of energy drinks that you're doing and serve your own energy drink at a reduced cost on a line item that you're probably already making a lot of sales on anyway. The best way that you can grow sales is by dropping your costs and maintaining a current volume. So check us out at indiecoffee.co and we'll love to tell you more there.
Welcome to the Coffee Experts Club, where we discuss all of the insights, expertise, and drama that goes into making your passion your profession. Our hosts, Aaron, Ben, and Drew, are three coffee experts who have taken their coffee experience and turned it into true expertise. They have consulted with major coffee brands throughout the United States and beyond, providing operations expertise and growth strategy for drive-through openings, multiple locations, and everything in between. So brew yourself a cup and hang out a bit with the Coffee Experts Club.
Coffee Experts Club. Ben Chatterbuck, how you doing, buddy?
Good. Happy weekday to you.
Happy one of those days during the week that makes me stressed, which is pretty much all 5 of the days. Oh, man, that's a good one. Did you have a good weekend, though? Was the weekend a good play out?
Yeah. I got to hang out with Mr. Cody Anderson. He's been on here a few times. Had him over for dinner. Had a little Italian dinner night, and him and his lady, and just kind of hung out. It was a great weekend.
I love it. Cody Anderson's the best. Houdini Coffee Roasters, those of you who haven't checked them out, coming out of the Tri-Cities of Washington. What a good dude. What a good brew. The guy is just good at what he does. Has been doing it for a long time. Has done it for a lot of big names. Got to do it for roasters, which is where Ben and I came out of at the very beginning. And then he went on to be a master roaster for Black Rock Coffee and then decided, hey, I kind of like doing this for myself and ratcheted it backwards and rolled out his own expression. So if you haven't checked out Cody, check out his stuff, Houdini Coffee Roasters. Good dude.
Yeah, shameless plug. He'll ship your beans wherever you want.
There it is. He'll ship them. So I think it's good, Ben. You and I were kicking around some ideas before the show started today, and we landed on something that I think Cody had to experience, that Drew and I have had to experience opening Coffee and Belize, that anybody has had to experience who's gone out and started something new. And that is the idea of bravery, the willingness to take risks as an entrepreneur, being willing to start coffee. And if you're out there and you're thinking, man, I have this in my heart and I want to go try it, and you're excited about it, I think it's important to realize that the biggest thing that's going to combat that for you is fear. That fear is going to come against you. You might think it's money constraints. You might think it's location constraints. You might think it's staffing constraints. All those things will sort themselves out. I found over time, the one obstacle that you'll find through every season of business is this element of fear and the willingness to take risk. And I thought we could talk about how to take risks today, how to be brave. What are the good markers on this is crazy? And then other things where you're like, no, there's going to take some crazy to get some things done.
Yeah, I think too, like the one consistent thing in business of being an entrepreneur is that you will inevitably at some point, you will come up to a point where you make a decision and you go, it's not really paying off the way I thought it would. And being able to live through that decision and work through that decision and decide, okay, was that a bad decision? I should course correct, or am I just not giving it enough time because I'm scared of the decision I made? And, if you course correct then you've just made a huge mistake. So that whole balance too of like being brave and being correct in the decisions you make and living with the decisions you make, but also being able to say, okay, I've looked at what I've done. I know this is a bad idea, or I know this is a great idea. I just going to give it a little more time.
Yeah. I mean, there's no way around that. Probably through making any decisions, you're going to experience fear, right? And if you're not, you probably are somewhere on the scale of somebody that might need some medication. You know what I'm saying? Right? Like, there's nothing wrong with being afraid, but the danger can be, you can go one way with it where it's like paralysis by analysis, right? I've overanalyzed something to depth and now I'm just paralyzed. I can't move, right? On the flip side of that spectrum is the other side where it's just like, you're just balls to the wall crazy every single time. You're like, I want to do base jumping every day of my life. I want to jump out of an airplane every day of my life. I want to free climb on the side of, the front of El Capitan and Yosemite the rest of my life. Like there's probably someplace in the middle that you need to land, right? Not paralyzed, not so crazy that you might die at any given day. What can we do and how can we land in the middle? And I think it's really important to develop some criteria of how do I make brave decisions? Because
Mhm.
I think you and I, Ben, are really similarly wired on we're willing to take risks. They just need to be calculated risks. And it
Mhm.
has to be ever pointed in our favor with calculated risks,
Yep.
not like I'm just going to go to the poker table and sit down and blindly play a hand of cards that I don't believe in. Like I need to really know, no, no, this thing is going to break my way.
Yeah, there's obviously a very big difference between a brave decision and a reckless decision. But like you said, there are a lot of business owners and business starters out there who that's just their personality. They're like, I'm just want to make all the reckless. I'm going to do everything. I'm going to make every reckless decision I can because that's just how they're wired.
Yeah.
Usually, your operators like us are wired a little bit less like that. So it's like, okay, you might have a reckless idea that
Yep.
we don't need to act on it. What how could we bring dial that back a little bit so it's a little bit less reckless, a little bit more brave, and kind of mitigate some of the fallout that might happen. I'm going to open 4 shops this year. That might be a little reckless. How about we pull back on that a little bit? Let's start with brave. Let's go with 1 shop at the beginning of the year and maybe another shop at the end of the year. Let's mitigate some of the financial disaster that might happen if you try to open 4 locations at the same time. So it's about being able to, like, yeah, you said, analyze, not overanalyze, but just kind of mitigate reckless abandon a little bit, if you have that personality. If you're the exact opposite, sometimes, like, I can tend to be the overanalyzer.
Yep.
Sometimes I need a kick in the pants. Someone
Yep.
says, "Dude, you've been thinking about this idea for 6 months. Just go do it already." And you're like,
Yeah.
"Oh yeah, that wasn't that bad of a decision because I've already thought through plan A, B, C, D, E, and F, and it's all fine anyways."
Yeah, we talked about a couple weeks ago finding a good partner. Like, how do you
Mhm.
partner in business? Should you partner in business? What does partnership look in business? If you haven't listened to that, I suggest to go back to it. I think this is a spot, like just like you said, man, that can really benefit you of trying to find somebody that's the yin to your yang, right? Somebody that's going
Yep.
to be a complement. If you know that you by nature can be paralyzed by overanalysis, then you probably want to find a partner that's maybe a little bit more daring than you, maybe a little bit more risk forward than you, where you might be a little more risk adverse. And that way you guys can complement each other out because this guy over here that's more risk forward could get himself into trouble, could get himself over leveraged, could get himself into a real pickle if he or she doesn't have a balance of the other counterbalance, thinking through, okay, so wait, what about this? What about this? What about this? Do we have good answers before we
Yep.
get there? But the one on the other side could be so many questions. They like get through one set of barraging and they're like, okay, I settled on that. And then a new fear creeps in and they're like, oh no. And then they get stuck in a whole nother set of conundrum of worry. And then they get lost and they lose the vision and they lose the momentum. So I think for sure, finding somebody that can either be a business partner or at least somebody that you know, trust, love, knows that they know, love, and trust you, and that you can bounce ideas off of. Who knows what they're talking about, right? Let's find
Mhm.
somebody that, yeah, I mean, your mom probably loves you. She probably doesn't know a ton about coffee, right? Like your dad may love you, your brother, your grandpa, your best friend that you're drinking beers down at the bar talking about. That's great. There are always those kinds of people, but find somebody who knows what they're talking about and make sure they're a match to what you need more of or less of, depending on which side of the pendulum you swing.
Mhm. And I would say that when it comes to making those decisions and kind of combating that fear to make a decision or gaining your bravery, the best way I think to start with that is just to come up with some baselines, just come up with some
Yep.
parameters of this is my ripcord line.
Yep.
This is if our revenue drops below this for this amount of time, that's where I go pull the ripcord. That was a bad decision. We go to launch a new product. That's scary. A new
Right.
offering, or maybe change our maybe we're changing to a different roaster. We're changing it to a different milks.
Right.
It could be a huge thing. It could be a small thing. What's my baseline of, okay, if my sales drop by 20% for an extended period of time, a quarter, is that my ripcord? And I go, okay, that was a bad idea because it can, and we've seen it happen in the past a lot. We introduce a new product, a new energy drink, for example, sales drop for 2 days, and you go, oh my God, it's the end of the world. Pull the ripcord. Well,
Yeah.
hold on, dude. It was just a bad weekend. As soon as
Right.
this next weekend, they're actually more than we've done before. So
Right.
if we had pulled that ripcord, we would have just shot ourselves in the foot. So as long as you can have a baseline, and then it's all about, okay, holding yourself to that baseline. I said
Yep.
this was my baseline. This is my ripcord moment. I haven't hit that yet. I'm not going to pull the ripcord just yet. I'm going to let this play out a little bit longer. That's how you can kind of mitigate that fear by just, the analytical side of me says this is my no-go zone. As long as I'm away from that, I'm good. I'm going to keep letting this ride because I did have a good idea. This is why I've got myself in this pickle to begin with, because
Yep.
I thought I had a good idea, or my partner had a good idea, and I thought it was a good idea as well. You don't do yourself any service to pull the ripcord before you let that good idea really play out.
Now that's good. I think it's really good. Ripcord, that's a great one. I would say number 2 would be, so maybe that's number 3, right? The first one is find somebody that balances you out, right? Find somebody
Mhm.
that's the yin to your yang. Number 2, determine what the ripcord is. Like, buck stops here. Like, we're going to go this far and no further, and really hold your lines. I think that's a good thing. Determine what's the benchmark that I'm going to live from. Number 3, I would say numbers don't lie, right? So get really clear on how can I make as many decisions possible based on metrics,
Yeah.
because a lot of times business owners, we go with our gut. And I think that your gut a lot of times can be great, but you remember that your gut, which is really just your mind, right? Your mind is built to keep you safe. Like that, you were a very highly sophisticated creature, right? That your brain was intended to keep you safe. So that means it's going to work through all the scenarios of where you could get yourself into danger. So there are times when our gut or our mind is wrong. It's because we're leaning in the fearful side of things. Whatever you're consuming more of, like I think we see it especially right now with politics, right? Like the more that you lean into fear, you'll see politicians lean people into fear. Why? To try and control them to go the way that they want them to go, right?
Mhm.
So be a clear thinker on what are the metrics that we're consuming. How can I make this decision metrically? Like when it comes to how much money I need, when it comes to, like I'm talking to a guy right now. He's a good friend of mine. He's talking about opening up his first drive-through coffee. We're helping people like that all the time, right? In fact, like a great place to try and figure out a baseline for your metrics would be myfirstdrivethrough.coffee. It's a free masterclass we did. We did 4 hours worth of content where you can just consume at your own pace. Gave away all of our tools for free. Go check it out there. If you know somebody that's starting coffee, you want to start coffee, it's a great place to start. But I was talking with this guy and I said, hey, he's looking at a corner, right? Which is how it all starts, right? I've got this business idea. I know
Mhm.
what I want to call it. He's got a great name. I know how I want it run. I've got, the basics of what I want. He's been meeting with me and Drew for some time now, developing out kind of his business model, what he's going for. The next thing you're going to do is, where's my first location going to be? And I told him, hey, listen, so call the city, call the county, figure out for sure, what's the traffic count on that court,
Mhm.
not projected traffic count, not what's coming. Cause a lot of times the developers are going to give you projected traffic count. The downside of
Yeah.
that is you don't want to wait 10 years for it to get to a traffic count that's going to justify your business. I don't care how cheap it looks. There's a reason it looks cheap. It's because the developers know the traffic count's not there yet. So be really, really clear that you know the metrics of how many cars you need to go by there so that you can peel off what percentage to make it an A location or a B location
Mhm.
or a C location. Cause that's all just numbers work. That's something we go over in masterclass. But I would say, man, really find somebody that understands numbers and make that baseline, that ripcord decision based on something metric. Because if it's based on the way that you feel, and I just feel differently different days. Some days I'm freaking courageous as hell. Other days I'm falling scared as hell. So it's like if I go only on my emotion, I'm going to be always and ever on this roller coaster that's just exhausting to live on. Make it metric.
Mhm. Mhm. I think you made a good point too. Also, trust but verify those metrics.
Right.
If they're sending you, yeah, this is the proposed traffic of this street when the strip mall and the movie theater gets finished in 5 years. Well, shoot, dude. Trust but verify, like, because there's nothing worse than making that decision based off of metrics, and halfway and you go, oh my god, these numbers are all wrong. These numbers
Mhm.
aren't like people gave me either projections or they were just sending me, back of the napkin math
Right.
on what my machines are going to cost. And I get in there and what my machines didn't cost $12,000. It cost $24,000. So like the metrics are good. And as long as you're verifying that they're correct, I think coffee shop owners they have a habit of also doing the back of the napkin calculations for a lot of things. And you can get yourself into trouble that way because you're like, oh yeah, these are the numbers. The numbers are saying I should make this decision. I'm going to follow the numbers. Well, yeah, dude, but like if you don't know the difference between addition and multiplication on your napkin, you're going to wee way up.
Oh
So
man, back the
trust
napkin
but
stuff.
verify.
Man, back the napkin stuff is definitely something you want to be careful of. Really work those numbers, really battle test those
Mhm.
numbers, and then show them to somebody else and explain them to somebody else and make sure that your numbers make sense. Cause sometimes you can start drinking your own Kool-Aid where you're just like convincing yourself and the idea is getting better and better the longer
Yep.
that you think about it. But it's
Yep.
because you're in this closed loop cycle and you're not bouncing off somebody else. So run your numbers, make sure they're not just, like you said, Ben, back of the napkin. I'm coming up with it. I'm spinning them. I'm fudging them. I'm pushing them my direction because I'm trying to sell somebody else on it. But
Yep.
meanwhile, like deceiving yourself is actually more dangerous than trying to deceive somebody else, right? Because once you start deceiving yourself, then you're lost in the conundrum, right? You're lost in the
Mhm.
sauce and you really need to be careful. I was thinking too, that probably the last thing, Ben, I mean, there are probably dozens of things we could go over today, but we talked about the power of a balanced partner. We talked about creating a benchmark, a ripcord. We talked about making sure their metric numbers don't lie. I think one of the final things I would give to people is they're trying to find this courage, trying to determine, is this risk a good one to take or is it not? I would say bookshelf strategies. I had a
Yep.
CEO that I worked under here in Southern Oregon before I started doing what we do now at the Collab team. And I remember he would always come back to, hey, let's make sure we develop a bookshelf strategy on that. And what he meant by that was, what's a book I can pull off the bookshelf when I face that? Like when I come up against that greatest fear, what is my number 1, 2, 3 plan to combat that? Because if I can come up with scenarios of, I run out of money, what is my next thing?
Mhm.
All my machines break down. What's my next thing? I lose a key player. What's my next thing? Like, if you can begin to develop bookshelf strategies where it's just you're pulling a book off the shelf, we're up against that now, then you can be bulletproof. Then you
Yeah.
can come up against something and know, no, 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 I will not fail because I've got good solutions for when bad things happen. Because it's not if bad things happen. We all know bad things happen. Like you lose a building to fire. That's something I worry about all the time down at Belize. We're building location number 3, which is a big step of bravery for me. Some days I'm so freaking excited. First drive-through coffee in a country, dude. That's so freaking exciting in some ways. And I feel just like a badass. I feel like, man, this is the coolest business ever. And other days I'm like, what are we doing? This is like, I can't get there within 8 hours. Like I'm so far away from this thing. I'm so out of touch with this thing. And it could be a back and forth. But building this all wooden structure down in Belize, I'm always worried about arson. I'm always worried about like competitor lighting it on fire. And so for me, it's like, okay, well, make sure that you have insurance. So if that does
Mhm.
go up that way, that you can at least build again. Like what are your bookshelf strategies to make sure that you're bulletproof? Because otherwise you're just living on a prayer, which is cool. Bon Jovi, the song was awesome, but it's not really something that you probably want to be practicing in your day-to-day life.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, and honestly, shameless plug for Coffee Experts Academy. If you're brand new getting into the industry, a lot of those bookshelf strategies come from just being in the industry for so long. I mean, you could argue that's why you and Drew are so successful too, because you've gone through just about every book on the shelf that you needed to up until this point, and you've got a whole library. If you don't have that library yet of just the practical, like, okay, I opened a shop and my manager quit. What do I do now? Like
Yep.
those, like instead of having to go through all of that yourself, we do have Coffee Experts Academy where we basically are lining out these books and helping you fill up that bookshelf so that you don't have to, go through the 10 years like we did of like, oh, my manager quit. What do I do now? Oh, my employees didn't get paid on time. What do I do now? Oh, I don't have money to pay my employees. What do we do now?
Yeah.
Oh, the state just audited my taxes. What do we do now? We
Right.
just launched a brand new energy drink and it seems like it's not taking off. What do we do now? We have, almost all of those books in Coffee Experts Academy that you can use instead of having to go through the pain yourself.
Man, I can't tell you how much courage it puts in my heart, Ben. Like I think about this like cool little thing we're doing down in Belize, this third location for a drive through coffee down there. And I just think to myself, it brings me so much peace to know. I just know the people we have on our team. I know you, I know Drew, I know Taryn, I know Cody, the Cody Andersons when I get stuck on bean questions. I know like I've built up a rapport of people that I work with that I just know have my back. And no matter what I come up against, I feel like we've come up against every scary, freaky scenario that I know of personally. We've had to face at some level, and it was brings so much peace of mind to know I'm not in this alone, or I'm not just going to grab to somebody who may have my best intentions in mind, but they've never been here either. So then where do I get that intel? Where do I get the inside peek? And I do think it's such a gift to have been in the underbelly of so many different coffee businesses, to see so many different ways the big black rocks of the world do coffee, or Human Bean does
Mhm.
coffee, or so many little independents do coffee. And everybody has their own twist and their own take and their own way. And each one of those businesses has been through their own fight of bravery to conquer whatever demon it is that they've been fighting. And
Mhm.
it's so great just to have this bench strength of people that I'm like, these people just know what they're doing. And when I'm stuck, I'm not worried what happens when the city rolls up on me and tells me I have to do this or that. I'm not worried when we're not passing inspection or where do we go from here. I'm not worried about what if community of people start going to the city and complaining and we have to start doing town hall meetings at that, like all these different things that we've been up against. I just think, yeah, those sucked to go through them, but it was like the education of hard knocks. And I love that we can just be that resource for people and that Coffee Experts Academy can be that resource for people because being a business owner is scary enough. Like, don't go it alone. Don't do it by
Mhm.
yourself. Like, find people you trust that you love that know what they're doing. I think it's important.
I couldn't agree more.
I couldn't agree more. Well, Ben Clatterbuck, I'm grateful for all these years. You and I have got to do this, man. I love
Yes,
our show
sir.
every week. Listeners, I hope you guys enjoy it too. It's great. All the new people thinking about coffee that call us on a weekly basis or reach out to us on socials or message us by email. I love being in the middle of it with people and I love that we're all doing this thing together. The coffee industry is a cool thing because it's just a tight little community of people that are all very similar, all trying to go to the same place. And that is serve an excellent cup of coffee to people that we love. So, Ben,
Love it.
thank you for your time today, buddy.
Yes, sir. We'll see y'all later.
Yeah, we'll see you next week, Coffee Experts.
Thanks so much for joining us today. For those of you who are looking to become a coffee expert yourself, we offer an incredible, thorough training online for opening your first coffee drive-thru at www.myfirstdrivethru.coffee.